Hi, my name is Pasta. Welcome to my first video about 2004scape. This is my account. I started playing on the day of release, which was close to a month ago now. 2004scape is a RuneScape private server dedicated to preserving the history of RuneScape, starting with a revision of May 2004 with free-to-play only content. It's currently in beta, and when it goes to full release in approximately 2 months, it will add all of the pay-to-play content. The project has been in development for about 2 years now, and I have been following its development with the intention to play once it goes into beta release, which is the first time that it will have permanent game saves. The project is open source and has a number of contributors, with one person who is seen as the leader and the person who hosts and runs the project. The level of accuracy and dedication to detail on this server is second to none, which is why it has quickly emerged as one of the most popular and successful RuneScape private servers to ever be made. The developers have even gone as far as to recreate RuneScript, which is the proprietary language that RuneScape is written in, so that they can accurately recreate all of the same engine commands and scripts that run on real Jagex RuneScape. While this server has quickly become quite popular, many people do have valid concerns and criticisms about it. The number one, of course, being that it will be shut down by Jagex because it is a copyright infringement. It's very difficult to say whether that will happen, but for this particular project it seems a bit less likely than some other projects because of the fact that it's open source and you can export your character data to a file. Anyone is able to run this project locally, so you could play a single player offline version and make any modifications that you would like. And if Jagex does go after the people currently hosting it, then as soon as they take it down, somebody else could host it and you could import your game save. This means that it will probably always exist in some form, but if Jagex does take action against it, it might cause the player base to diminish or fracture. To me, these concerns are not significant enough to warrant not playing the game whatsoever, because this is perhaps the ideal version of RuneScape for me. With that said, I should note that the project does intend to progress through time after beta is finished, so they will add content from later in 2004 and then 2005 and beyond. They plan to fork the server approximately around calendar years, so that if people would like to continue playing 2004 forever, they can, and people who want to transfer their accounts into 2005 also can do so. For me personally, I see 2005 as perhaps the peak year in terms of quality of content and balance of the skilling metas, so I'm planning the long-term future of this account to remain in 2005 currently. But related to those concerns about the long-term viability and stability of a server like this, the concession that I make is that I don't intend to do any very high APM or challenging skilling methods, because that would require me to lose focus on other endeavors that I have. So this will always remain somewhat of a side project, but I do intend to continue playing it for the long term. As long as it doesn't take away from the progress on my other endeavors, then it's simply a net positive because it's a game that I really enjoy. So I'll talk about my account a little bit. These are my stats. I've effectively only trained woodcutting and spent very little time on anything else. I started the game as soon as it came out, and I had a plan that I had practiced in the alpha servers prior to this to run through some of the early game quests, because my long-term plan was to kill tree spirits while training woodcutting to hopefully get a better axe faster than it could be obtained from waiting for people to train smithing. So I completed the early quests to get some GP so that I could afford some of the basic supplies to start training magic, because magic is my combat style of choice to kill tree spirits. Tree spirits combat level scales with the combat level of your character, so keeping your combat level low is advantageous, and magic is very overpowered for low level DPS and also allows you to safe spot. I trained a bit of rune crafting early on to get the runes to be able to kill tree spirits, because GP early on was very limited and I wanted a simple way to get into woodcutting as soon as possible. And most of the runecrafting XP since those early levels has come from lamps. On day 2 of the server, I got a adamant axe from a tree spirit, which is a 1 in 16 drop. It was probably the first one in the game, but hard to know for sure. I made the decision to sell it for about 45k, which for day 2 of the server was an enormous amount of money, and probably was the biggest trade that happened so far at that time. GP comes into the game very slowly in free-to-play, especially when all players are new and don't have access to alchemy yet. The reason I sold the admin axe is because I saw 45k on day 2 as a significant amount of money, and I wanted to try to invest it and see how that would turn out. Of course, the value of GP will diminish quite a bit over time, probably most notably in the first 1 to 2 weeks, and then slowly again. And then once pay-to-play is added, it will diminish significantly once again, because pay-to-play will greatly increase the rate of GP entering the game. So at this point, I felt that it was worth it to take advantage of that early game GP, put it into items that I knew would increase in value quite a bit, since the value of GP would decrease. I'm friends with the person who was rank 1 smithing for the first little while, and was the first person to smith mithril, and I maybe also adamant axes, though I think that the 2 people reached that around the same time. So I used a mithril axe not too long after I sold the adamant axe, which wasn't a huge downgrade, and later purchased an adamant axe when it became smithable. I got the rune axe from Tree Spirits on 30 kill count, which is 2 short of the drop rate of 1 in 32, so no complaints there. Of course, it would have been nice to get very lucky, and it would have given me a bit more advantage in the early woodcutting competition, but getting it within the first few weeks makes not a huge difference in the long term if I plan to continue woodcutting long term. I could have sold off logs to purchase a rune axe earlier, but I decided not to because the price of logs is very low right now, and once pay-to-play is added with fletching, the price of logs I expect will go up by 2 to 3 times. So the plan that I had set out went pretty smoothly, and I had the rune axe within the first few weeks of the game. I was able to AFK chop U's at Edgeville for a week or so before they became too crowded for it to be worth it, and now I AFK chop U's elsewhere when I can't be focusing on the game very much, and when I can pay a bit more attention, I chop willows and bank them here at Draenor. I don't do 2-tick oaks for the aforementioned reason of not wanting to put too much effort into this game due to its uncertain future. But to me, things like yews and willows are a good middle ground, and also allow me to bank a lot of supplies, which will be satisfying in the future. The reason I chose to do woodcutting is because I see it as one of the better options to train during the free-to-play period. We have access to all of the skills except for 4, but many of them will become a lot faster once pay-to-play content is added, and I also intend to play through 2005 content on this account, so I'm thinking that far ahead as well. I will probably avoid skills that will become significantly faster or easier with 2005 content as well. The best choice if you are fully focused on this game would probably be fishing or mining right now, because both of those can be trained at pretty much peak efficiency compared to pay-to-play, but the downside of those is that is only true if you're willing to put in a lot of effort and fully focus on them, which is not something I'm willing to do. So coming in around third place is woodcutting, and woodcutting can be trained at a pretty low level of effort and still a pretty decent level of efficiency even compared to pay-to-play and future content. The only thing that will make a major difference very far in the future is the addition of Apatol and the 2-tick teak trees there. But until then, the fastest woodcutting XP will be 2-tick oaks, which with this game's respawn rate is, I don't know the exact rate, but definitely under 100k XP an hour. I'm currently rank 2 in woodcutting. The first person is already 99 and seems to be going past 99, and I believe they primarily do 2-tick oaks, which is how they're able to gain such a commanding lead, because it seems like nobody else has been doing that for a significant amount of time. I don't necessarily expect to keep rank 2, but I'll just keep playing at the same pace that I have been playing, and we'll see what happens. While it is fun to look at the high scores and compete for ranks, ultimately it's kind of a distraction, and losing a rank is not actually a loss of anything material in the game. So as of now, my plan is to just continue woodcutting until the release of pay-to-play content, which as of now is approximately mid to late May. I do expect that I will finish 99 woodcutting in another 3-ish weeks, maybe 4. So I will probably be doing post 99 woodcutting. Maybe I'll reach as high as 25 to 30 million XP before pay to play comes out, but I'm not exactly sure. Once pay to play comes out, I'll have to decide whether I want to continue with woodcutting or switch to a different skill. In terms of macro efficiency, it would probably be smarter for me to switch to fishing at least as my AFK skill, because with the fishing guild you're able to AFK lobsters and bank them very quickly, whereas in free to play there are no good places to AFK fish and bank. And the efficiency percentage of fishing lobsters is definitely higher than the efficiency percentage of AFKing yew trees, especially if you consider the potential of 2 tick teaks in the further future, whereas no such enormous buff to fishing rates will come in any version that I plan to play. But of course there is a part of me that is a bit swayed by the high scores and also by the idea of staying consistent and completing a skill that I start, so a part of me is considering just continuing woodcutting despite the potential future devaluation. Part of the reasoning there is that I probably wouldn't do 2 tick teak trees even if they did come into the game, so for my account personally it doesn't actually really matter. I do also have interest in some other pay-to-play skills though, so I will have to balance that as well. I'm interested in training agility once they release Brimhaven, which is later in 2004. I'm interested in training thieving because it's a pretty easy and fast skill with no requirements that will just generate GP that is useful for other endeavors. Most of the skilling that I plan to do is either break even or profitable, so I will have a surplus of money that I will probably want to use for something interesting, so I may put that money into a buyable skill. And I'm not sure which skill that would be yet. It kind of depends on what the market looks like. And I also will need to decide whether I want to fletch my logs once pay to play comes out, or whether I want to sell the logs or just hold on to them for the future. Fletching does not receive a make X or make all until I believe later 2004, so if I keep in the spirit of not putting in too much effort to this game, then I probably will wait to train fletching until that is added. But that being said, fletching is a lot faster to train prior to the batching update because you can string bows, I think, faster than 1 tick per bow. And I think that cutting unstrung bows is also faster. I think that's most of what I wanted to say about my account. The fact that the original game rules from this time period are enforced in this version of the game is perhaps one of the most valuable things to me, because I think that disallowing the usage of alts or multi-logging and the limited amount of content that you can do while paying very little attention, and the fact that you will be logged out of the game if you're not playing for 90 seconds, it makes the game world feel much more alive. So while a lot of people will criticize this server for still having a pretty small amount of players compared to things like old school RuneScape, for reference, this server does have between 500 and 1,000 concurrent players. I think would be pleasantly surprised by what can be accomplished with hundreds to maybe thousands in the future of people who are fully engaged, 1 human per account, participating in the game and the economy and the experience as a multiplayer game.